Chronicle the experiences of Little Falls area people in World War II. I'd like to welcome tonight our first interviewer, Mr. Angello Staffo.
How you doing?
Now, Mr. Staffo, did you volunteer or were you drafted?
No, I was drafted. I went in 1943, January 2nd.
January 2nd. Did you go through Syracuse or Albany?
I went through Utica.
Utica.
Went to Camp Upton.
Camp Up. That was on Long Island.
Yeah, right.
Did you go with a big group of people
Yeah.
here?
Big, large group. I don't know, maybe 60 people.
Yeah. In 1943, they were taking a lot of people.
Right.
And you probably didn't stay at Camp Upton very long.
Just long enough to get our clothing and shots and so forth, and then I was shipped down to Miami Beach, Florida, for basic training.
Miami Beach, that would have been
Yeah,
easy to take.
it was nice.
We had some people the first night who took basic training in Atlantic City. You know, a lot of people would envy that maybe today, although I don't know. You went by train probably.
Yes, oh yeah.
Went by train. The trains probably took more than one day to get to Miami.
Yeah, just about a day at that time. And from Miami, I went to Fort Myers, Florida for gunnery school.
About basic training, how many weeks was that?
Practically 6 weeks.
6 weeks. And you did the usual things, firing rifles, marching, learning drill,
pistols,
stuff like that. And this was the Air Force then?
right.
The Air Force. In those days, they used to draft people in the Air Force. Now,
Yes.
they haven't done that in quite a while. Okay, and then you went to Fort Myer for gunnery school.
Right.
Okay, what kind of weapons did you learn to fire?
30 millimeters and 50s. Yeah, calibers, caliber machine guns.
These were in a bomber?
Some in bombers and some in single-engine aircraft. And firing at sleeves, fixed ground targets and things of that nature.
Total targets. These were twin 50s or just single?
In the bombers, twin 50s.
Yeah.
In the single engines, they were just single 30s.
And how long did that take?
Approximately I'd say 2 months. Let's see, January, February, March, April. Yeah, about 2.5 months.
That gets us into 1944.
No, still 43.
Oh, still 43. Okay. And then you went from Fort Myer to?
To Denver, Colorado, and I went to Buckley Field for a couple weeks, and then to Lowry Field for armament school.
Pick up any promotions along the way?
Not that soon. Shortly after armament school, I was made a sergeant. But that was after armament school, just before I reported to my group in Louisiana.
You got a lot of training overall, probably several months, including
Short
all
period
these,
of time,
all these
right?
phases.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you finished the armament school,
Went to Shreveport, Louisiana, and went to a bomb group there for more overseas training.
Right.
In bombers that we were going to fly overseas.
Which ones?
I was assigned to B-26 Marauders. They were twin engine.
Right. Yeah. You know, I was just a kid during World War II, but I remember all of these silhouettes they used to put up, and we were ready to identify anything that came by, but it hardly ever did around here. Yes. And did you get any leaves or anything like that?
The only time I got a leave, it was just prior, well, it was supposed to be prior to going overseas, but the only reason I got a leave was because my radio man dislocated his shoulder, and we were held over for a couple of weeks. Most of my group went to Italy, but because of the delay with my radio man, we went to England.
And they formed the crew here in Shreveport.
Right.
Did you go overseas by plane or by boat?
No, I went by boat, but my pilot, co-pilot, and radio man flew a plane over, a new plane. We went to Georgia, they picked up the plane, and they went on from there, and we went into New York, and we went over. I think the ship was the Aquitania, a British.
That was a big liner, rather prominent liner. Yeah. Those were fast enough so they were, if they weren't in convoy, they could outrun the submarines.
Yeah, we didn't have any escort whatsoever.
No. But it still would have been a little scary, I think, sleeping below decks down to 3 decks.
Sleeping below decks, we had.
It was that thin hide of the ship.
we had 3 bunks tiered like that.
Yeah.
3 men slept.
So one guy,
top of the
he had
other.
to signal when you're gonna
Yeah,
roll over.
roll over,
because you
had a
couldn't
signal
go.
when you wanted to
I can
climb out.
Remember those myself, yeah. And I suppose the usual number of people got seasick on it.
Well, I didn't, fortunately. No, never bothered me.
The North Atlantic gets pretty rough,
Yeah?
especially in the wintertime.
It was rough.
Then you pulled into England, probably Liverpool or someplace on the west
No,
coast.
we we landed in Greenock, Scotland. And from there, we went to another training base in Northern Ireland, where we got more so-called overseas training before I joined my regular group.
And the regular group would operate out of England.
Right.
With
We were about
B-26s.
maybe an hour outside of London.
Now that was probably coming up pretty close towards D-Day.
No, I flew 35 and a half missions before D-Day.
Before D-Day.
Right.
Okay. Then you were stationed in England on the coast reasonably close to...
Great Dunmow, yeah, see, we were light, medium bombers, so we didn't have
Yeah.
the range of the 17s or 24s.
Right. Your targets were probably mainly railroads and stuff like that?
Railroads, marshalling yards, bridges, we hit rocket bomb sites at Singapore, France, and all
Oh,
those.
the B-1s and
Right.
B-2s and
Right.
stuff like that, yeah. And 36,
Well, 35 and a half.
how can you get a half?
Well, I was shot down over
Oh,
France.
all right, that's
Like
a half, that
36.
explains that. And then you became a prisoner? at
No,
that point?
we evaded capture. The French Underground took us under their wing, and I remained with them for about 3.5 months.
Wow. Now, when you were shot down, what got the plane? A German fighter or
Well,
any aircraft?
I say shot down, but actually at that time we were trying a new method of bombing, and one of the flights come over and dropped a 2,000-pound bomb on our left wing,
Oh,
and sheared off most of the left wing and the left engine. At that time we were about 11,000 feet. And we dropped down to about 5,000 when pilot gave the signal bail out, so we all got
so
out.
did you ever jump before that?
One other time, we were partially disabled, and we had to lighten up the load on the ship, so we bailed out over an English air base. But that was the second time.
Everybody make it down?
My co-pilot was killed. His parachute didn't open. My pilot, myself, my radio man escaped. The others were picked up and made prisoners.
And you were picked up by the French
Underground, yes.
The Germans ever come close to finding you?
Yeah, we were staying at one place we stayed at. We stayed in the farmhouse, and we'd be in the kitchen eating, and the Germans would be coming to the door to buy fresh produce and stuff. So, not that they catch. Well, we used to raid the German ammunition dumps for bombs or guns and what the hell we can get.
Yeah.
Loaded them up in the church. I imagine after we left, when the invasion came, the French Underground used them.
They probably did,
Mhm.
yeah. How were the French people living at this time? Were they, pretty much under the heel of the Germans? It was a tough time?
In the section where I was at, they didn't seem to be all that bad. They didn't hassle them in any way. Whatever they took, they paid for. They didn't take, actually, they bought. At the time I was there. What happened later on, I don't know, but,
Did they get you out before
No, we were-
D-Day?
invasion, no, we were supposed to go to another section, and they were supposed to get us out through the Pyrenees and go into Spain.
Yeah.
But we never made it. It was called off because D-Day was coming up.
Yeah.
And we stayed in the parish house of a church until the British troops came through. And then we stayed there another week, and then we were flown back to England.
Did they put you back to work, or?
No, we weren't able to go back to flying again. We were shipped home.
Oh, well, it's a reasonably good break after
Mhm.
all that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Got out alive anyway.
yeah. Well, there were a number of people who didn't.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly had some interesting experiences. I bet you learned to speak French a bit, too.
Very little. We were taught a little bit before we went.
You know.
Just, I'm an American, and can you help me, and things of that nature. But over there, where we were staying with the husband and wife had been in the United States for about 9 years. She was a cook for some wealthy people on the island. He was a handyman.
Yeah.
They stayed there about 9 years, and then they went back.
Oh, so they could speak reasonably good English.
Fairly, enough to make you understand.
Did you ever worry that some of the neighbors might turn you in for favors from the Germans or something?
Not really, because they were all related one way or another to the people we were staying at, the neighbors we had. And most all of them were on the French Underground, so
Nobody
were
would
on that score, no.
I can remember seeing pictures after the invasion and France was liberated of some of the women who collaborated with the Germans. They shaved all their hair.
We went.
Treated them quite badly.
We went to a small village, maybe 2 days after we were liberated, and we saw them shaving their heads, stripping them.
The collaborators.
They were throwing things at them.
Wow.
Awful.
There was a lot of emotion raised by
Oh,
this
yeah.
war. A lot of emotion. Yeah. Did the Germans ever come through and take any hostages because of underground partisan activities or anything like that?
Not where we were.
I don't know. I understood that they would do that. I mean, they would take 10 people out at random and shoot them if there had been any sabotage of rail lines or anything.
Different areas probably. Where we were, nothing of that nature happened.
Well, do you ever correspond with any of the people?
I used to, but the people were quite elderly, and they passed away a good many years now.
Oh, nice. I remember, what was it, 2 years ago was the anniversary of D-Day, and a number of American veterans went back over.
Yeah.
You didn't?
No.
Didn't want to go?
I was there before D-Day, so I didn't.
Oh, you had gone before
Yeah,
on your own.
I was shot down in France on May 30th.
Yeah.
And D-Day was June 6th, so I was already over there.
I imagine that, the way I understand it, our Air Force did a very effective job on the German rail lines.
They did.
And that.
The heavies, 17s and 24s, and the British planes really did a terrific job, more inland than we did. See, our primary job just before D-Day was knock out the bridges on the River Seine so that they wouldn't be able to bring reinforcements up quickly.
Now, you said your plane was hit by a 2,000-pound bomb.
Yeah.
What plane dropped that? A B-24?
No, 26, one of our own.
They could carry one of those?
Yeah,
Oh.
we had two. We carried two 2,000-pounders. But I just miscalculated and dropped, and that was it.
And it hit you, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine a number of people got hit by friendly fire.
Yeah, they
what
did.
What can you do about that? Then you got home. And did you get discharged then, or did you have to stay in
I
service?
stayed in. I went back to Denver, and from Denver I went down to Shepherd Field, Texas, and then from Shepherd Field, Texas, I came up to Rome, and I was there maybe 3 or 4 months, and I got discharged in September of 45.
What was your rank when you got
Staff Sergeant.
And when you came home then in September, that was right about the time of VJ Day. Must have been big celebration.
Just right after.
Right after.
Yeah.
And
well, I was here before. I was in Rome at VJ Day.
yeah,
And then I got discharged shortly after that.
I know that some of the people I've interviewed, most of them in fact, didn't get really back till well after VJ Day.
But I know what I did. I was stationed up in Rome, and I called my girlfriend at the time, told her I was coming down. I hitched a ride down, and
All right.
we went out for the night.
All right.
But as far as the community, they had something later on, but I wasn't around at that.
I remember every community used to have a honor roll. Remember those?
Yeah.
And I think the one was over by, was it at Eastern Park or was it? Somewhere?
Yeah, they had one in right in City Hall. I think it still is. All the men killed in the service.
At least,
World War II.
I remember in St. John'sville, it was on the lawn of the Methodist Church there. It was made out of wood.
I think this one
Didn't
is
last.
in the City Hall.
So you got discharged, and then you probably, did you have a job before you went in service?
I had a job before I went in.
And then they had to hold
Yeah.
that for you, that was the
Right.
law. Okay,
Right.
you went back to that one? At Chicago Pneumatic?
No, I was working at the fire company at the time. Chicago Pneumatic wasn't here at that time.
Oh,
They
okay.
were still out in Cleveland.
National
and
Auto
Detroit.
Fibers, I
Right,
remember that
right.
was down in the west.
That was a long time ago.
They made
Oh.
upholstery parts for Chrysler.
Upholsteries,
Chrysler,
right,
I
for
believe.
Fisher Body.
Oh, Fisher, I
Fisher,
thought it was,
yeah.
oh, it was GM then. It was Fisher.
Yeah, well, Fisher made them all for General Motors anyway.
Yeah. And did you ever take advantage of any of the GI Bill things? or-
Well, I was, and then I decided, just didn't have the, I don't know, ambition maybe.
Wow.
So CP came in and I went to work for them. I worked there for 30 years.
Do you ever keep in touch with any of the guys that you knew? in
I
service?
used to, but up until maybe about 5 years ago, we used to not correspond, for Christmas, send a card and give a resume of what happened during the year, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, the cards stopped coming, so. I don't
Yeah,
know
they will
whatever
do
happened,
that,
yeah.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we are doing this show, because there are a lot of World War II veterans left, and
Mhm.
they'll be around
Oh, yeah.
for a long while, but slowly but surely,
Well, we had,
they're not. You see in the newspaper all the while that the older ones, the ones in their 70s, so going on, many of them now.
well, let's see, myself, there were 4 of us in the service. I had one brother in the Navy, one was 27th Division. He was fighting the Japanese. And I had one brother flying out of North Africa. He was shot down and killed flying over Greece.
What kind of aircraft?
He was flying B-17s.
Yeah.
He was a bombardier.
Yeah, we don't realize. I don't know myself how many people from Little Falls died in the war. I should probably check that out.
Quite a few for a small town.
I would estimate that probably 800 or 900 totally served, and probably 50, 60 killed, or maybe more or less. I don't know for sure.
I wouldn't know for sure.
I have to check that out.
But there's quite a few, but for a small, like I say, for a town of this size.
Yeah.
There's quite a few.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Staffo.
It's quite all right,
Good
Mr. Allen.
that you would come in to talk with us and
It's okay.
record this for history.
All right, thank you.